Hi everyone, and a massive welcome to this special edition of How Does Cybersecurity, what does cybersecurity and baseball have in common? My name's Simon Linstead. I'm the host and founder of the InfoSec Live community. And today I've got three very, very special guests. But before we bring them on, a little bit of housekeeping. If you're watching this live, please like and subscribe. Also, please jump in the comments. We want to make this interactive as possible. And if you're watching this on the replay, again, please hit that like button. Make sure you drop your feedback in the comments because we're always looking for ways to improve the show. But without further rambling, because I'm really good at that, and for those of you that are watching live, it is 11 o'clock in the evening here. I'm going to bring on our three amazing guests who are Mr. Paul Cummings, founder of the whole Cyberhuman Initiative, Jeff and Greg, CEO and COO of Valor Cybersecurity. They're now coming on. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for jumping in today. And I think, as we said in the back of the studio before we get started, this is going to be an event where Simon keeps his mouth shut. The British person talking about baseball isn't the right approach, but we do have a baseball star in the audience or in the room with us today. And we also have a couple of expert cyber people as well, with Paul Cummings at the top. Say hello to everyone, Paul.
How's it going, everybody?
Greg Tomchick, CEO of Valor.
Good evening. Great to be here.
White, the COO as well. So, guys, Paul, can I pass over to you for a bit of an intro about what this is going to be about?
Absolutely. So we're going to discuss how the similarities of baseball and cybersecurity exist. When you think of baseball is a game of data loss prevention. And our goal for this topic is going to be talking about the various positions on the field to include your offensive side. And that's pretty much the route we're going to go. Fill some questions and see if anybody has any thoughts of their take on a sport or hopefully baseball and how it translates into what they do.
Super. Before we crack on to that, then, Paul, I know a lot of people watching will probably already know who you are, but just give everyone a bit of background on who you are and what you do, and we'll go around the room before we get started.
So during my daytime, I am a cybersecurity research engineer with Stevenson Technologies Corporation. Currently working with IoT and hacking IoT devices and smart devices. And by night, I am the CEO and founder of Whole Cyberhuman Initiative, an organization that's built on workforce development research. We developed a 100-hour pipeline that is self-paced, absolutely zero monies involved. The only cost is time. We actually just had our first 2 people complete the pipeline, and I'll be launching their outtake videos here soon. And yeah, I mean, we have a fundraiser going on. Our goal is to make $25,000. There's multiple ways. I will drop it in the comments. But the goal is for $25,000, $20,000 go to the procurement of 50 $400 test vouchers for certifications and starting the first ever cybersecurity certification scholarship on scholarship.org.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Super exciting and happy to support what you're doing there at the whole Cyberhuman Initiative. I know one chap personally, Gregor in Germany, who's just been through the program, said it was absolutely phenomenal. So hopefully we can touch on that again a little bit later on. But Greg, do you mind jumping in and just telling everyone a bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, Simon. Thanks for hosting this. I think it's going to be an exciting conversation. If you heard Paul's intro, he is a modern day superhero with what he's able to accomplish. The team here at Valor Cybersecurity definitely partners with Paul and puts folks in our talent pipeline through his program because we really see the benefit that he's able to provide folks. And it's not the same of the other programs in this space. So I want to just establish that up front. It is very collaborative. It is experts in the field providing you the expertise that you need to go whichever path you're going to go. So it's not we're going to stick you in a box and put you down an alley we think is going to be best. It's a collaborative approach that we support here at Valor Cybersecurity each and every day, and love being a part of this community with you, Simon, and Paul. Always a pleasure to interact and be able to kind of share share some of the things that are near and dear to our heart, but also, relate them back to people in the cybersecurity space. So just a quick intro. Greg Tomchick, CEO here at Valor Cybersecurity. We're based out of Norfolk, Virginia here, home of the Navy, as many people know it. Both my parents were military, so really always had that military defense mindset. Ended up playing baseball for the St. Louis Cardinals later in my career. And after that, had a cyber attack at a company I was running, so decided to dive in headfirst to cybersecurity. The path has not been straight. It's been jagged. It's been all over the place. It has been, one that I don't think I could have drawn on a piece of paper or on the back of a napkin if I even dreamed of it. And I get to each day go to the table with a great team to be able to discuss how we assess cyber threats in different business environments. We help build security programs, and we do it in a variety of industries, including professional sports with my background in that space. I'm extremely excited about this conversation and looking forward to diving in.
Awesome. And I was then going to introduce Jeff, who I think may be back. Let's see if I can bring you on, Jeff. Are you there?
Yeah,
Testing.
I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I'm hard down with my internet, so I apologize to you gents. But not sure where we are in the conversation, but happy to.
I can help you with that. I can help you with that,
yeah.
Jeff. We can hear you loud and clear. It's
Perfect.
much better now. We were just doing a bit of around the table, doing a bit of an intro about ourselves. Paul's gone, Greg's gone, and you seamlessly arrived at the right time to carry that on, Jeff.
Yeah, so Jeff White here with Valor Cybersecurity, working right alongside Greg, and really working at the business level to help guide, advise, and ultimately transform businesses when it comes to navigating their cyber threat landscape and building their cybersecurity program. So quick rundown about me. Happy to be here, and I'm sorry about the internet connections.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. It's absolutely pleasure. I'm glad you got back in. So, Paul, let's throw it back to you. So I think this was your idea for a show, despite Greg being our resident baseball star. Can we kick off with the whole idea of how cybersecurity and baseball have those similarities?
Absolutely. One of the conversations that I had recently with Greg, not too long ago, and Jeff, was the amount of professional athletes that are exiting, due to injuries and stuff like that. So, probably a month and a half ago, and then maybe a week ago, I hit him up and said, "Hey, we should do a segment on how the similarities are in cybersecurity with baseball." Because there's a lot of baseball players that might want to get out, and they might not want to go sell insurance, or be an all-state, advert type person. So when you think about the story of baseball, it's about a baseball diamond. And this diamond is essentially your company. Now, breaking each role down is way easier than when you think about the different cybersecurity roles that are out there in the world, right? So thinking of it as a SOC or an MSSP, you have everybody you need for a SOC environment on that baseball diamond to protect your data. You got your pitcher, who is your primary, that's your first responder. They do your VPNs, they're your firewalls. They're your DLP program. You got your catcher, who's looking at the actual field. That's your GRC compliance and risk management person. They're your disaster control because they see everybody. They know each player's weaknesses. And then when you talk about the entry and the exit to the diamond, you got your first base, you got your third base. Those are your SOC analysts. The most busy of the busy bees are going to be your second base and your shortstop, which are going to be your threat hunter and your threat intel. They're in the mix of it. They're following the adversaries while they're on the field. And then you got your outfielders. They're your VLANs, your subnets, your OAuth. They're your absolute data loss prevention, trying to stop that ball from going over the field or data being extra field. And then thinking about your batter at plate, they're social engineering you. They're using behavior science against you, and they're trying to break your defenses. And then when you think about in the concepts of ERAs, in baseball, or errors, that's your percentage that, you're actually fielding the ball with not having any issues, like slipping a pitch, overthrowing shortstop or something like that, right? So those can equivalent to CVEs or patches or a bad GPO, or lack of awareness training. But as Greg knows, obviously going through the minors, going through middle school, high school, city league, all the way into the majors, it's a working machine. I'll pass it over to you, Greg.
Yeah, no, I think the fact that your mind has gotten there, it blows me away from that standpoint. I think, when I think about organizations are so focused on data loss prevention nowadays from the executive level, and from the sports level, specifically baseball, the coach always wants to win. And sometimes they don't look at what the next layer requires in order to prevent data from being lost or to ensure that you win each game. And I think when we look at a skill set and we look at what Paul just described from the different positions on the diamond, it is all of those components and all of the members of the team playing together to accomplish that thing. So for an organization, it's preventing data loss. For a baseball team, it's ensuring or putting you in a better position to win the game. So I think just an incredible perspective on how baseball relates to cybersecurity. And I think one of the key things I heard you say was you have to start somewhere. So when we go into organizations today, they want to be in the major leagues of cybersecurity. They want to have the whole diamond filled with A+ players. But what they don't realize is you have to start somewhere. You have to start with a firewall. You have to start with a pitcher catcher to start the play off. And then you start to plug in players at different angles of the field to enhance your strategy overall to prevent those data or databases from being lost, corrupted, or stolen in most cases. So I think, just an incredible analogy. And, I think there's a lot of different angles we can go with that. But, team sport, it takes the whole team to accomplish the overall objective. And you have the offensive and defensive side. So what I'd say, to anybody listening is, whether you're trying to get a career in cybersecurity or whether you're an executive of an organization, when I was up and coming in baseball, I had to start at T-ball, and then I went to coach pitch, and then I, kind of went up the maturity chain and learned different things at each step of that process to kind of put me in a position to be able to excel at a high level. And I use those exact lessons today in cybersecurity. So love the analogy, Paul. I'll toss it over to you to see which avenue you want to go down from here.
I think if I jump in quickly, I mean, not necessarily a baseball analogy, but definitely a team sport analogy where you're only as good as your weakest link. And I think that speaks volumes in baseball and in cybersecurity. And the fact of having to get those fundamentals right first that you were just alluding to, Greg, that seems to be where a lot of big organizations indeed are falling down at the moment when we see where the successful attacks are coming from. Jeff, have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I didn't play at the highest level like Greg did.
I didn't play at all. Don't worry.
I don't know how much value, but I did play on a traveling team up until about right before high school. I did put some thought into this and how the individual roles kind of come together as the theme here is being a cohesive unit as a team, right? We look at every sport is a team sport. Cybersecurity is no different. So, kind of looking at it from defensive unit, you have your outfield and your infield team working together, and their ultimate, goal is to protect the other team from scoring runs. In this case, it could be the adversary trying to find their way into your individual or business. If the infield doesn't catch the ball, or in this case, potentially your SOC, your security operations center, proactively, identifying and blocking that threat, then it's ultimately the outfield's responsibility for making that play before the runner or the threat advances. Similar to the role a potential threat hunter may play as after an event becomes a cyber incident. On the other side of the ball, you have the batters, those players whose goal is to move runners and create scores, right? With the hopes that the pressure is not on the defense to win the game. They say defense wins championships. But your offense could be the potential, penetration testers, security researchers, risk and compliance folks, and even your executive security strategy leaders like your CISO or your chief information security officer really proactively creates a roadmap for guiding and advising, ultimately creating cybersecurity victories. And it's important to note that these victories, they always look different for the organizations depending on the size and scale. So just my thoughts. I wanted to get creative with it, but I think it resonates the theme that where we've headed thus far.
No, absolutely. Just one quick question, Greg. Based on something Paul said earlier about pitchers being red team, is that why you're wearing the red shirt tonight, or was that just a coincidence?
Yeah, I was just repping the Cardinals first place in their division. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out there.
Yeah.
Near and dear to my heart, just incredible organization, and glad to be a part of that journey and be able to play for such a high caliber team. From that
I hope you didn't mind.
standpoint. So I
Hope you didn't
appreciate
mind
you
me
asking.
mentioning the shirt there. Sorry. Back to you, Paul. Sorry, I sort of jumped the turns
No.
there.
Oh, you're good. I mean, you're absolutely right, right? So the pitcher can be the offensive side too, because they're trying to break the batter's perimeter, which is the batter's box, right? You throw that curveball. Maybe that was a fishing attempt. You always got the batter that wants to swing out. That happens all the time, even in the majors, not just in high school or middle school, but they go for those thinking that that's going to be easy pickings, and then the ball drops on you, and you're like, oh, well, I just missed it. But there's another aspect too when we talk about the different strategies of the similarities, and that's the architecture of the baseball field, right? So when you talk about, in the back channel, we were talking about with Greg being a pitcher, right? We'll look at like the minors, in the majors, right? In the minors, the AAA team, they're beating the heck out of you, right? You don't get a relief pitcher or anything like that. You're running rampant, so you can make it back up to the bullpen. You can look at that as an immature sock that's overworking their analysts, overworking their team. Maybe they have those job descriptions out there that are riddled with 20 certs, PhD, stuff like that for an entry-level position, but the pay is going to be top dollar. Well, they're paying for all that experience, and now that person thinks that, I'm worth this much, and they get there and they're like, I'm really working for this dollar amount. And then you look at, finally making it to the majors. You've already learned that team cohesion. You've already built that coach-player familiarity. And traditionally, you get the 7th inning stretch, and a relief pitcher comes in, right? So think of that as an incident response. If you have an active engagement going on longer than 3 months on site or 3 weeks on site, that incident commander might need to swap out. The incident commander being that pitcher, right? Because their arm is heavy, it's jello, or maybe it's a 3-part game, and he's got to save because he's got to open the game tomorrow morning. Stuff like that. And then you got the working parts. We talk about the VLAN for the outfielder. Maybe that switch needs to go down for maintenance, so you swap out the player. But that's the route that I think we could go with next is, how the different architectures and the complexities, especially, with tomorrow leading into Web 3.0.
Yeah, Paul, I think not enough folks see the structures in sports that are intentionally put in place. So it is such a back office operation of you play for 3 hours and you practice, say, for 9 hours. So it's such a coordinated muscle memory type activity that gets put on a stage for such a short period of time that you're dependent upon to execute in that short period of time. And if you make a huge mistake, it is under the spotlight. So it's very apparent from that standpoint. It's like if you're in a real life cyber attack going down and you make a mistake that you practice 1,000 times, that could take down a portion of your network. When I think about muscle memory and all the effort that goes into practice, I think about people preparing and doing training and awareness and understanding the different architectures that the organization operates within, whether cloud, whether it's on-prem, and kind of understanding how those things come together to accomplish a common mission. But I think a lot of folks in the IT space, in the cybersecurity space, they understand structures. But when you look at a sport, there's those exact same structures. They just might be called, something different from a naming convention, but they have a similar mission at the end of the day. And I love that you made that connection there.
Sorry, I was muted then. Jeff, any thoughts?
No, I was just going to break it up and ask Greg if pitchers still hit home runs. So that was always the joke that they like to think of them as having warning track power, but
WTP. Yeah, but I played an adult league here, and most of the time they only hit me nowadays, and I'm kind of curious why I didn't hit when I played at a higher level. And I sometimes see those guys around, and I say, I should have been a hitter and maybe not a pitcher. But I think in today's cyber world, you can really be whatever you set your mind to from that standpoint, because there's so much open area to expand. So
is it again
definitely
though,
have WTP. Jeff likes to joke me about that. So
is it not important though to play to your team's strengths or the individual player's strengths? I think I say that from my own experience of thinking I could be a technical pen tester when really my skills probably weren't there in the first place. And this goes back, going off tangent from the baseball, back to what whole Cyberhuman initiative are doing, and something you mentioned earlier, Greg, actually, which is people not being shoehorned into roles that are available, but finding roles that suit the people, because there's a lot of that around in the industry now. We see it all the time. I'm not going to start naming names, but you do see it. And especially people being preyed on who are transitioning from military service here in the UK and in the US, end up getting shoehorned into roles that perhaps don't suit their skill sets because of who they've engaged with. Paul, any comments on that? And how can we relate that to baseball, I suppose, is the tenuous question, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, so just like you have in your football, baseball has a draft, right? So we are seeking that top talent. The headhunters are out there. They're scouting the high schools and the colleges. Some high schoolers can absolutely go right into minor league and play farm ball, is what they call it, for a couple of years, and be basically an athletic graduate. Going through like a business program or something like that. But I mean, ultimately, you nailed it right there with the veterans. That's a soft spot for me, especially with the boot camps that have been praying. I was glad Military Times actually found out that one organization was doing that for, I think it was like well over $5 million that they basically defunded or defrauded the government. And that's not even counting how many service members got really minute training off of it.
It's not even that. It's derailing someone's, career path as well, isn't it? Because you see people then a year down the line from starting these things, having to go back to the beginning and start all again.
Well, this really goes back to something that Greg's been doing really good with his partners and contracts that he's got, is really explaining that cyber is your business defense. Stop trying to silo it with IT.
Yeah.
Right. Because your IT has InfoSec teams there to audit the IT. Well, if your cyber people are with your IT, who's going to audit them? Right. You need that third party assessor to come out to audit your team. So
can't mark your own homework.
Yep. But that's the first step is, when you look at the two websites that I like to send candidates to, because obviously we're making global presence, but in the US I send people to the SysNICE framework, right? And that's broken down by the NICE, the National Institute for Cybersecurity Education, of how they interpret those roles, right? And then for our family on the other side of the pond, I send them over to the UK Cybersecurity Council, because they do the same thing. But I will say that the one on UK is definitely better with the nice click and drag. But
Well, it's
User
ironic because
experience.
I point everyone in the direction of the US ones.
well, so the U.S. ones are more in line with the DoD FedRAMP,
Yeah.
and let's be honest, that is where you see a lot of the unfilled roles being vacant at. It doesn't help that there is that constant argument between medical marijuana and federal service. If I got medical marijuana and it's for insomnia, for example, by the time I wake up in 8 hours, the mind alter substance is gone, right? Or in theory, right? So you have, I think it was the Federal Employees Union or the Federal Employees Legion is actually they're presenting the MORE Act for that, because even CISA, who has an awesome apprenticeship program, is having hard times because some states you can't even get a private, a public trust clearance if you have, a felony even as a minor, right? Usually, most states will still.
I'm gonna say something about that because it's close to my heart, right? in a way, and in the UK, obviously, it's different rules here. So, marijuana is illegal. You can get it prescribed on the odd occasion, but it won't be funded by the NHS. Although, going back to your point about when the effects of that wear off, so when you're fully compos mentis again, the law over here, if you were to smoke or whatever you want to do with the cannabis of an evening, if you then drive your car within the next 28 days and get pulled over and swab tested by the police, you'll lose your license because it stays in your system for up to 28 days. But it doesn't affect you for up to 28 days. So again, there's lots of little idiosyncrasies like that mess people up. But let's stop talking about cannabis. Because that really hasn't got anything to do with baseball. It doesn't improve your pitching, folks. I can promise you.
I do have.
We're talking about how there's that labor shortage. I mean, look at a
Yeah.
lot of the youth that are growing up where they're actually getting prescribed medical marijuana by their psychiatrists.
Yeah.
They have to say that they're taking a scheduled drug on their federal application, and that automatically disbars them. It's the same thing with the states that have, you can have a felony at age 17 that's supposed to be sealed because you're a minor, but like Texas, I can go join the military and have a polygraph type security clearance, retire, move back to Texas, and I can't get a public trust job.
That's crazy.
It happens. So obviously I could go protect national secrets, but I can't go work for,
Yeah, I think that you
backwards.
Yeah, very much so.
Definitely on to something here, Paul. A lot of those individuals that the workers of the time that maybe break into government installation, government sites, and now they can't get jobs in the private sector. But the best way to defend is knowing how to get in potentially. So there's a stigma there. That we don't want them because potentially they committed a felonious act at some point in time, but could they potentially bridge the gap in the talent shortage and ultimately plug some of our holes proactively? Probably, but
I completely agree, Jeff. And there's Daniel Kelly, who was the Talk hacker in the UK, which was the biggest telecoms hack. He's been out of jail, I think, approaching 2 years now, and he has finally got a job as a researcher, but it took some time, and him doing a lot of work on LinkedIn, self-promotion, I suppose reassuring people that he isn't a criminal anymore. And the thing is, he was 15 years old when he did that. He's now in his 20s. It took many years to go to court before he even went to jail for it, and then he's now on license for another 2 years afterwards. So I suppose the first learning point there is crime doesn't pay, because it's put his life completely on hold for 7 years, ruined his family life as well. But also, it's finding those companies who will take a punt, I suppose, take a gamble on taking him on. Because I agree with you, Jeff. The amount of value that these people can bring is phenomenal.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Mike Jones, was in a similar kind of situation. Good, bad, or indifferent there. But the main thing is that he has talent, skills, and ability. And what would happen if we bring these individuals, we break down those barriers, right, of their previous, rap sheet, and they're reformed, they're transformed and integrated, right? I'm big about integration, giving people a second chance, because we all have, nobody's perfect probably here on the
No,
stream. We've all
absolutely.
made missteps, whatnot. But I say that because, what would happen if we brought them in and they're so hungry to get back and get skin in the game that they're ready to be mentors for that next generation of promoting leadership, promoting individuals, and bridging that gap, so they could be that security champion for organizations. You bring them in and say, hey, I don't want to do anything right now except be a community leader and community manager, or be an advocate for transitioning military individuals that want to break into cyber. I can help lead them, right? I can help you get them there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, any other thoughts on that, or shall we move it back to baseball?
No, it's segueing back to baseball now. When we talk about, going back to, a lot of players they're beaten up, right? They've learned the business of baseball, so they understand business. They understand team. So, I would look for, someone like, Greg, that said, hey, I want to make a difference now that I'm not in the spotlight anymore. Get your business knocked out and learn how your position might be of value to a company. When you talk about the level of threat intelligence and open source intelligence that goes into some of the positions on the field, I know that for us down, when I was doing middle school, we would the shortstop and the catcher would go to the other team and watch their games, because I'm going to learn those adversarial techniques. Right. Then when you start getting into the senior level, it's probably your pitcher and your catcher, because your pitcher is really your first line of defense. But it's not, for me, it would look at that. That's the perfect soft skills and hard skills to transition over into cyber, and not an entry level position. Right. And that's really the focus that I want to really do with this baseball and cyber translation. Is here's some concepts that you can go with, especially if the audience members, if they're playing softball for, a church team, or maybe they played high school baseball or made it into college and, had a scholarship. That, you look at professional sports, not a lot of athletes have a backup plan. You look at states like Texas, in football, real big football town, they could be their senior year and they can get their knee destroyed after signing a scholarship. And now what are they stuck doing? They're tending a field or something like that, or because they were a city star, they might be the face of an advertisement or something like that because they're a homegrown hero. And that's the segue I want to go into, is how we can start talking about the translations of skills.
Yeah, I love it. This is one of the things when I was still playing, but also when I got out, that I really tried to make a point to anybody that I would speak with, whether it was a 10-year-old person who thought they wanted to play professional baseball, or it was somebody that was transitioning out of the military locally that said, you're in cybersecurity, how can I get into cybersecurity? Or I'm in this area, I want to get into business, for example. And just being able to realize that we all have unique experiences, and they make you uniquely qualified to do the role that you want to fill. Obviously, you have to leverage your skills, your past experience to get you inside the door. But once you're in the door, the clamshell is open for you to make the best of it, from that standpoint. So I think, leverage your skills, have the right people on your side, organizations like whole Cyber Human Initiative, and be able to ask the right questions. It was, for me, everybody wants the answer, but they need to understand the questions to ask when you have the unique opportunity to be in a conversation with somebody who's an expert in a space. Not necessarily how did you get there, but what did you value when you were trying to get there? What type of person did you look for to lean on when you were trying to get to this role? for me, I was always labeled and bucketed as a baseball player, and that was it. You're not an academic. You're not a person that likes to read books. You don't like to, learn new things. And it was just because you're good at something, you're put into this box of baseball player. And if I allowed myself to stay in that box, I would probably be, training people or, being some type of local coach, which I still do those types of things. But I really enjoy being able to dive into an area with such a wide ranging variety of folks with so many different mindsets and different experiences. And that's what really keeps me going on a daily basis. I love how sports and business and cybersecurity really have so many similar dynamics that even if you didn't play sports, but you love sports and you understand the different dynamics of what makes a sports team successful, you can take that into any environment, whether it's IT, cybersecurity, business, joining the military, and these organizations really value your ability to do that once you have the right conversation. So I kind of start it there, Paul. Hopefully, I kind of hit on some of those key points, but willing to dive into any of those
I
angles.
think if you don't mind me just jumping in quickly, Greg, what seems obvious to me is the word mindset, and success in itself is a mindset. And someone coming from the background that you have, where you've trained super hard, you've put the effort in, you know what that takes, you know what it means, you know what failure feels like, you know what winning feels like. That's so transferable to any industry, especially cybersecurity, which, let's be honest, is a little bit cutthroat at the moment as well, isn't it? Paul, any thoughts?
Yeah.
No, it absolutely is cutthroat. I mean, you figure just in the U.S. alone, cyberseek.org heat map says 714,000 roles unfilled. I presented at Cyber Now Summit in April, and it was only like 610,000 back then. But there is, that you and I talked several times about how my mind's wired differently, and I can look at somebody in the military and say, based on your job in the military, this is how you can translate it into cyber. It's just one of those things that, maybe I'm broken, but maybe it's a good broken
in a good way. Yeah.
And it's the same thing with sports. This isn't the first time I used a baseball analogy. I got to meet Tony Mack, one of the inaugural Jaguar players on his TV show. And, we were talking about whole cyber, and he's like, well, what is whole cyber? And I played to his strength. We are the middle linebackers of cybersecurity education. We're looking at the battlefield. We're picking up the pieces. Everybody that's left behind, we're pushing them along, and we're driving the defensive line or the offensive line. But it's just one of those things that I've been able to do. And, Jerry over at Simply Cyber recently talked to Aaron Katz Gantz, who's a trucker, and about the transferable skills he has, right? But, the reason why we do the systemized framework or the UK Cybersecurity Council's mind map is to showcase, because just as Greg said, right, you got to get a mentee that comes up to you and says, how do I do cyber? Or I want to get into cyber. What do you want to do in cyber?
Yeah.
I don't know. I watched NCIS and I seen McGee and Abby on the same keyboard hacking.
I want to do that.
It's like,
you laugh though, Paul. That was me about 3 years ago. I think going back to what I said earlier about the training companies, or some of them out there, though, I don't think they help. It's the managing expectations part. And I know there is, massive amounts of roles unfilled, but there's also, and don't take this the wrong way, anyone who's watching, but I was one of these people who'd spent 6 months on Hack the Box and thought I was an expert at penetration testing. When in reality, it is really so much more than that, isn't it?
Well, that goes to really Greg's strong suit, and really Jeff's too. If you don't like writing, you really need to look at the nice framework and the cybersecurity council's mind maps, because more than 80% of these roles are very report intensive. And as you found out with red teaming, it's a lot of writing,
It is.
a lot of note taking while your hands on keyboard. And you're absolutely right. I got to try hack me, bang out a room, but did I take notes? No, I never got caught.
It's not the same. People say, hackers don't have certs and qualifications. Yeah, they don't have to report on what they've done either. I think that's something that people forget quite a lot, isn't it? I could quite easily, or not quite easily. I think I got one box in my OSCP, but I could probably cause some damage, but I have no idea how I'd done it. I wouldn't be able to report on what I'd done and how I'd achieved it. And I think there's a lot of malicious actors out there who aren't that highly skilled. I mean, you've obviously got lots who are, but with all the ransomware as a service and all the other things we're seeing spring up on the dark web and beyond at the moment, anyone from a 16-year-old in their bedroom upwards can potentially look at it.
That's really the other stigma that a lot of people are having with some of these entry-level positions. You have high schoolers that are maybe at a STEM school. In the States, we have the STEM Academy, science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yeah.
And agriculture. And they're going through programming camps, and that's going to be one of the things to talk about tomorrow with Greg and Jeff on the Valor Cyber Risk live stream. Maybe
what time is that? Quick plug. What time is that, Greg?
9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Look forward to seeing you there.
Super. Sorry, Paul.
Jeff will be extra shiny.
Appreciate the plug.
He'll have his coffee. Hopefully some whole cyber by then.
Right. You should be some whole cyber. I'll be sipping on it.
I mean, it's that mindset that we keep circling back to mindset. Before I started Whole Cyber Human Initiative, I had clocked in, there were 600 mentees. And each of them, when you sat down and talked with them, it's just like you had in your vision last year when we first met. It was either you want to be a SOC analyst or a pen tester.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, it's glamorized on TV and stuff. But going back to the age disparity, high schoolers during the COVID pandemic had to learn how to maintain their own computer to be remote workers.
Yeah.
Right. They were remote workers. Keyword remote. Not every role in cyber or IT has to be done on site. But they had to install VPNs that the school provided. They had to run antivirus security checks, especially when they were submitting a Word document, stuff like that. The teachers had to learn how to be ITs because now they're teaching on a virtual platform. So, but then you hear a lot of these companies that are really not, they say they can't attract youth, right? And a part of that is it goes back to the idea that maybe STEM had it right on a few aspects, especially as we lead into Web 3.0. Majority of STEM schools in the U.S., they're led by the PTA, and PTA usually see what the buzzwords are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever.
It's all right. Elon Musk has bought it today. I think everything will be fine now.
But they see coding, as one of the things, right? Everybody needs to have a language. So I know my son's school, their fourth graders are able to start a code academy with them, with their STEM class. And, it's like Python. But that is, that's one of the things we talked about when we were originally looking at that one grant we were trying to go in together with, is we really need to hard bake security into our youth. And here comes another shameless plug.
Good.
The World of Haiku.
I haven't played it yet,
Red
actually.
versus Blue. Right? Threat Gen Red versus Blue in the World of Haiku. Both owners and founders, amazing. They really are trying to target the youth because they do like that gamified learning experience. And, that's that's one of the things I'm going to help push. I'm meeting with Eric about trying to get some World of Haiku in some of these schools, but it's there's ways around it. We need to if we can hard bake security into our youth, we know that we're going to be protected for at least another 10 years.
Well, we're already fighting half the battle, aren't we? If we're doing that, and I can't speak for World of Haiku because I haven't played it yet, but it's on my list of things to play. And I think there's a discount on that until tomorrow, if I saw rightly.
There
25% off if anyone fancies giving that a go. But I've played a fair bit and shoutcasted quite a lot on the Threat Gen platform, and my knowledge of how, I suppose, the people, the processes, the process you go about setting up for a business, the amount I've learned from playing that game is more than I've learned from any book in the last 2 years. It's given me such a good overview, I suppose, of the individual sections that you learn while you're going through your journey. The gamification part for my brain, the way my brain works, it allows me to see the bigger picture, which I think is a massive help.
And that's actually, something that when you think about it, Cliff, obviously, big, or Clint, ICS skate above it, right? So knows a lot of OT cybersecurity. And I was happy when I seen the second iteration start having ICS on there. That's when I really started watching. I was like, oh man, who's going to get pwned, right? Who's going to get that ransomware, and who's going to have their assembly line go down?
It's exciting.
But his algorithm is phenomenal. I mean, and then as he's adding the modules and the buckets into the new upgrades, it's going to be a force to reckon with, because
I think so with the league as
well.
well.
Your own infrastructure.
Yeah, and I think with the league's going to help bring that competitive edge to it as well, which I think will definitely help with the younger students. I mean, my 17-year-old, he's been playing it on Steam now for about 3 months, and he keeps coming out with stuff. I think he knows more about cybersecurity than I do, which isn't hard, as we all know. But
it goes back to, you play the game or you play it to learn.
Yeah.
Right. Because I do know some people that are just blasting through it. I got my points, I'm done. They're not reading the cue cards. It's like backdoors and breaches.
Yeah.
Another, we need executives, from, I would say, director level up to really start utilizing backdoors and breaches and tabletop their environment.
Yeah.
That would be a huge success and win in my book.
And how do we do that? How do we get the engagement?
It goes back to something that Greg had mentioned, or you mentioned earlier too, with all the CISOs that are within your circle wanting to do something. One of the things that we're going to use the fundraiser money for because 5,000 goes towards overhead and upkeep and stuff, is we're going to try to host a director to executive level roundtable so we can talk about this talent shortage. Quit saying talent shortage when the adversary's watching TV or surfing the internet.
That's a good point.
But talent there's no shortage. There's a shortage in people that can identify it.
And I think whilst there's lots of platforms where CISOs and other C-suite executives can go to share best ideas and practice, 99% of the time, these are sponsored by vendors, let's be honest. And there's always an ulterior motive. That's the feedback I've had from the CISO. So for you to say that with the funding you're going to get, you look at organizing one of them that isn't vendor focused, I think would be extremely popular, because all the feedback I've had so far is, they love sharing best ideas. They love the fact that they could get together with perhaps CISOs in the same industry, sharing the same problems and digging deep into things. But then you've got some aggressive SDR standing at the bar with your glass of champagne, not letting you leave for 45 minutes until you buy their silver bullet.
Well, it's just like some of the conventions right now, they actually say on the call for presentations, no sales pitches. JJ, our brother JJ, I mean, look how many times he's went to conventions in the last year and was like, I'm not going anymore, because they're all vendor sales pitches.
They are.
Nobody's learning anything, which was with the intent of the conventions. Learn as a community.
Yes, that, I mean, I
But
went to my first one this year, which was RSAC, and I was shocked actually as to how little value there was for someone like me there, other than being sold products to for 2 days. You know, I caught a couple of the keynotes, which were really, really good, but I could have watched them back online, couldn't I? Afterwards, so I was a bit disappointed. Although I did come home with lots of pairs of socks, free T-shirts, and stickers that my laptop's covered in, so it wasn't a complete loss.
I mean, and that's another segue into, the similarities with sports and cyber. I mean, you have the National Baseball League. It's a bunch of ring knockers that got together. They formed the league, and they actually plan out the games, right? So it's, when you really think about a ball club, you can actually look at it as its own little government, right? So you have Major League Baseball conglomerate controlling who plays where, what times. Is it going to be a back-to-back, which sadly still happens, even though there's more days in a year and there's less teams now. But who gets that? Right? But all the way down to, when you talk about the DoD clients or the DoD contracts, those are your ball clubs. The Cardinals. They have to be within compliance. They have to go out and get those drug tests. They have to make sure that their relief team or their primary starters have a relief team, right? So there's a lot of strategy that goes within sports and business, especially when you think of a lot of the CEOs or the C-suites inside civilian side work in the U.S. How many of them are prior officers from the military? Right, because there's companies that actually look at the military, Navy specific. They come out and they learn the business of a ship,
Yeah,
and they walk away with some pretty awesome, dynamic leadership. And that's another aspect that Greg and Jeff can talk about with the leadership skills that anybody on a diamond has. Just like in cyber, if you are leading by, maybe you're growing in public, you learn something new, you share it so that person behind you can learn it, right? You basically want to work yourself out of a job. With cyber, everybody's a consultant, at least in my theory. Even that SOC analyst that's never had hands on keyboard before, because they are there to be that first line of defense for that business. But thinking how that, just the baseball diamond in general, being a well-oiled machine on a good day, even on a bad day, because it is a team, they still triumph, even if there is that zero on the win, right? It could have been, they might not have won, but maybe they stopped ransomware, or, because you look at like we were talking about with threat gen, you have your hard kill and you have your soft kill. Am I going to exhaust your resources and kill you because you don't have enough turns to keep pen testing me, and I get you on a stalemate clause? The same thing with cyber business. How can you thwart them? With maybe cyber insurance, stuff like that. So that's
there's a whole other debate, isn't there? The cyber insurance market at the moment. We appeared on the Crest podcast week before last. Myself and Team Bramfit went on there for a chat about cyber insurance, and the market is in turmoil at the moment after Lloyd's of London stated that state-sponsored attacks weren't going to be covered. And I think there's a lot of concern in the market around, well, actually, two of the CISOs I've been speaking to recently are talking about self-insuring their businesses rather than going the insurance route. And I wonder whether for the more established businesses with the cash reserves or the assets to back that up, whether more people will take that approach.
Well, I think a lot of startups have already started doing that, because now you have equity capital.
Yeah.
If I put my company in equity capital and let's say I'm Blizzard, and Overwatch 2-day happens, right? And then that department of Blizzard gets shut down. I have public equity to where that game can still make money. It's not going to be making the business money, but it's going to be making the person's money that we're in charge of that equity.
No, absolutely.
So,
I'm conscious we've got 5 minutes left, and I want you to have a chance to get any messages across. I know it was about baseball, but I know you, Paul, and you, Greg and Jeff, have both got things perhaps you'd like to get across. So, Paul, do you want to just focus on whole cyberhuman initiative, what's going on there as we wrap things up, and then I'll move over to Greg and Jeff for a bit of a Valor update before we close?
Yep, I'll do a short plug. So we have a fundraiser going on. We will have a 5K starting on Friday, the 15th of October. And it comes with racing bib, t-shirt. T-shirt is actually going to represent all the partnered ecosystem logos. So if there's organizations out there that you don't know exist, they're going to be on all one t-shirt. All proceeds go towards, obviously, procurement for the scholarship fundraiser that we're doing. We're on Amazon Smile, so if you want to buy something and donate to a cause blindly, there's a way. If you go to wholecyberhumaninitiative.org on the About page, go down to about middle of the page, there's a Donate Now link. If you're a company, organization that wants to make a substantial donation, we have what is it? Brevity.
Brevity. Yeah.
Yep. So corporate level can donate. Thanks to Wolfcat Consulting, our sponsors for the 5K. They paid out of pocket for the entire event, and all the proceeds again will be coming back into the whole cybersecurity ecosystem.
That's brilliant.
With the scholarship application details to follow after obtaining the milestones.
I've just dropped in the chat there, if you can see the link if you're watching, that is to a YouTube video that tells you about the fundraiser that is on Whole Cyberhuman Initiative's YouTube channel. So please do check that out as well. Thank you, Paul. Greg, Jeff, anything from a Valor point of view you'd like to get across before we wrap things up?
No, it's just been a pleasure to be on the same stage as you guys. We'll definitely be participating in the virtual 5K, I think from Orlando at that time. So looking forward to that. It's going to be an awesome time, just to be able to support such a impactful organization. That's why we do what we do on a daily basis. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to continuing this conversation. This is a conversation I like to have, and I typically have it on a daily basis. So would love to continue it. And if anybody's interested in kind of thinking about their own angle, I'd also bounce back to something Paul said about resonating with the folks that you're speaking with. He went to an individual that was a football player, and that really resonated with helping him understand how cybersecurity impacted his either daily life or business. If we can do that on a larger scale, we'll be able to make a bigger impact than we're already making, and looking forward to continuing down that road. Thank you, Greg. And Jeff, any final words?
Yeah, it's been great to be here. I appreciate you providing us a platform. I think it's really, Paul, I appreciate you being creative when it comes to, linking to where the parallels are in cybersecurity and beyond. I think that just, I see that, we're all cut from different fabrics. We're not all. So I think if we can identify where we want to play on that field of cybersecurity, that field, designated hitter, you want to be the pitcher, you want to be the security strategist. Identify what you want to do. Back to Paul's kind of conversation about the NICE framework in the UK, kind of that. Identify a strong mentor. Mentors is going to be on. Identify strengths and opportunities for growth, and then those areas that you want to grow in, and go back to the drawing board. If it's lift longer balls, in the cybersecurity context, you want to be better at alerts and creating business context around them, setting up labs in your home environment, and red versus blue or threat gen, and then going from there. So we're all valuable in what we bring to the table, and usually when you go to these interviews and these discussions, because we all can bring a valuable businesses businesses and ourselves.
Thank you, Jeff. And just as a quick recap, then I think Paul, you said this Friday is the 5K fundraiser.
No, it'll launch October 15th.
October 15th for the fundraiser. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Am I right in thinking Digital Risk Digest? You three guys are going to be on there tomorrow. So another date for your diary, people who are watching. Thursday this week, I've got a new series starting called The Human CISO on this channel. First guest is a chap called Scott Wright, who's the CEO and founder of ClickArmor, which is a learning and education platform for cybersecurity. And we're going to be focusing on those, as Paul was just, and actually all three of you were just alluding to, those soft and essential skills and how important they are, no matter what level you are in the cybersecurity industry. And then next week on Monday, we're back with how to hire in cybersecurity with Greg Vandergast, CISO from the UK. And the following week, we've got series 2 of the CISO experience. I think we've got 15 guests lined up already, still doing some outreach on that, looking to have about 30 in total. So make sure you tune into all of them. Thank you so much for everyone who tunes in and watches. Bit of an announcement that I should have probably done at the start. We've qualified actually within just under 12 months for the YouTube partner program by getting just under 5,000 watched hours and 2,000 subscribers. So a massive thank you to all of you who've supported us for that. Hopefully it means we can keep getting more content out there, more value for all of you. So Greg, Jeff, Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure. Everyone, see you all soon.